where it's just like, wow, like tremendous change has just occurred. So what people may be seeing on the outside, maybe like the spur of a moment type of a, oh, this person has changed, but it undertook quite the journey to get there. So I don't even know what I want to say with this, but the point is there tremendous change and tremendous transformation can occur. You can go from not loving your life at all into, I love this life, this is incredible, with a lot of moment of presence, because I just reflected upon this the other day. Back then, I had very rarely moments where I was present. I wasn't even aware that I was in a completely dissociated state, meaning almost like not in my body, as little in my body as I could. And then sometimes I had those strong clarity moments where it was just like for a split second. And in retrospect, I know that's when I was present. That's when I was actually there. But I can count them in one hand how many times that occurred. Now I'm living mostly in the present. And if I don't, if fear states, for example, occur, and finances is definitely one of those that I've been working on over the past years, and mainly over the past 3 years, to know that you can trust, to know that you're guided, to know that you're held. You can rely on yourself and on your guides, on spirit, on God, that you are taken care of. You are guided and you are carried. Is such a beautiful thing. And again, too, that you can have the means to come back to the present moment, get out of fearful state, because those are illusions. What are we fearful of? The future. Do you have food now? Do you have a house now? Do you have, you know what I mean? Do you,
Yes,
are you
yes.
healthy now? And even if you're not, then those are indicators that there can be progress made. But my main point here is you can go to quite a bit of presence and quite a bit of not controlling your thoughts, but knowing that those are illusions too, because your mind will be telling you all sorts of things versus your heart is just like, ah, kind of like this. Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to I Am Diaries podcast. I am so excited today to have with us Marta of Universal Power Tarot. And thank you, Marta, for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for having me. I'm very excited, and hello, everybody.
Yay, I'm excited
Yay.
too. And, just as an introduction, this is difficult with Marta because we have a beautiful friendship as of that has evolved very recently. And Marta has an amazing YouTube channel called Universal Power Tarot. She is a fabulous channeler through using the cards, but also just she herself channeling is just amazing and brilliant. And I highly encourage you to check out her YouTube channel, Universal Power Tarot. And the best introduction I can give is a little bit to say a little bit without going into a full-blown story about meeting Marta and beginning, I want to say, our work with her, because when I met Marta, my husband, who has recently passed, very recently, June 17th, we met Marta back in May at a picnic, and we immediately connected. My husband and I went home and we watched her. He is a Pisces and I'm a Libra, and we each watched one of the card readings that she gives on her channel, and we both cried on both of them. And we were like, oh my goodness, we need to connect with Marta and we need to have sessions with her. And so my husband, Rick, had a session with her face to face. That was amazing. And then I had one with her a little bit later on Zoom. And the interesting thing, when Rick passed, shortly after he passed in our house, he was on the bed. The embalmer left him on our bed for me to be able to have a chance to connect and say goodbye, or just to connect with him, really, and be with him. And in that moment, huge pieces of Rick's reading and my reading with Marta came as I am laying on the bed. Just I'm remembering that there were parts of Rick's session where Marta said, something is being prepared for you. Something big is being prepared. I'm not getting what it is, but it's almost ready. And it will be something that will change the world. It will have an impact, a huge impact on humanity. And if I'm mixing up any words, Marta, feel free to interject.
You go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. And also, that his energy, the energies he's carrying in this lifetime in that body have been so big that she was like, I think maybe you might have twin souls somewhere sharing your energy. And immediately she says, nope, it's just you.
Yeah.
And it explained, it actually like brought together and helped me understand so much more Rick and everything that he had experienced in his life, and who he was and how he moved through life. He was like insatiable with knowledge and doing things and creating things. It just was on and on and on. And also in many ways, like, I don't know, his physical body could actually carry all of that for a sustained long time. Rick passed at 59, which is very early, but he had a very full life. He really came with many agreements in his life that were fulfilled. And I'm coming to terms with all of that. But then, in my reading with Marta, it's the Two of Cups. And even at the beginning of the session, she keeps doing this with her hands. And she says, I'm getting that you two have so many connecting points energetically, and there's so many more that you're not aware of. And that you two coming together, doing this, creating a sacred circle, your hands like this, and chanting. And then to close the circle at the end, because it will be so powerful that you will want that protection. Okay. So now I'm laying on the bed with Rick after he's passed. And yes, we did do that a couple times. We played with it out in the yard, and we were really trying to, we were discovering chants that we thought would be the appropriate chant for this. And we came across Rudka de Kudsha, which means Holy Spirit, and Malkuta de Shmaya, which means Kingdom of Heaven. And this is Aramaic, in the Aramaic language. And so as he's laying on the bed and I'm laying there next to him, it suddenly occurs to me to put my hand in his like this and to do the chant. And literally within 30 seconds, it's like the room started moving and I'm getting a vision. And I was channeling these words that were coming in me, through me, and out me, and also claiming this. This is not the end. It's only the beginning.
Wow, Jesus, yeah. Every time you say that, like I'm getting chills. It's like unbelievable. Yeah, totally.
And you guys, this is just the beginning of a new relationship. Rick is working in the causal realm. You are in the effectual realm, and he is helping you to ascend so that you can walk in this realm with him, and also bring through uh uh this purpose that is to come through to earth and to humanity. And in that moment, suddenly I'm filled with so much joy and peace. And there was more, even like light language was coming out. I didn't know, but it was like it anchored it and it sealed it. And so it was just, and then I'm actually remembering Marta saying that something's being prepared for you. And at that moment, I knew this was it. We're working together in another room. And I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't feel like I lost my husband at that moment. I felt like a new journey and a new path began for us. And the realization that just that he is not in this body, his consciousness is here. And I'm telling this now because Marta and I have been working together since then and realizing that much of the purpose of this and is to bring into the light the truth about what we call death.
Yeah,
The
totally.
of death.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Yes, and that because we go into such mourning and suffering when we lose someone, we feel immediately that we need to find a way to shut down the suffering and to move on and let them go. When in reality, there's a purpose in them being out of the body in another realm so that we can actually connect with them, communicate with them, and they can help us to ascend and to bring forth the kingdom of heaven on earth through us. And it's like, when people say, when they like those near-death experiences,
totally,
immediately family comes in, and everyone comes. It just occurred to me this morning, they don't come. They're always there. They're always there. You just now can see.
Yeah.
They come to greet you.
Yeah.
Your eye was open and you see them now, and they're always there, and they're there for us. And we can connect with them here and now while we're in this physical body.
Absolutely. They can be such incredible guides, like when we make that connection to our ancestors or passed on loved ones. Not everyone, I think, has like a mission such as you two, as it came through. Like literally, I'm doing this again, where you literally, he is there to provide you with information, also with what he sees. But then through you to be the action taker and to see what you can do with that information. So I think, I don't know if everyone's like that. I don't think so. But for those that have that strong feeling, I would highly encourage them to go after that connection, despite the partner not being in the physical realm anymore, right? Because, I mean, like you were saying so beautifully, this isn't the end. This is just the chapter of something new that can be something profoundly different, because Well, the circumstances are just different. They just changed. So they're on a very, very different level now, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes. And what
Mm,
is your thought on on the beliefs that we have about
mhm.
it, like kind of influencing how because I know you're saying that not everyone maybe gets that message or gets something like that tells them that this is a new beginning,
Yeah.
but also the beliefs that we're not supposed to connect or that they're just purely gone now,
Yeah.
that we're suffering in these physical bodies because they're not here with us physically
Totally.
doing physical things, and the touching and this
Yeah.
all the five senses, right, that tell us
Absolutely.
this person's here. um,
Yeah.
and so what are your thoughts on how our you know what might be kind of false beliefs
Mm.
about that, and how that keep us from having that experience?
Well, first of all, I really want to say like the grieving part cannot, I don't think it should be taken out of it, the equation, because we are human. I
Yeah,
really want to stress that because I believe that's very, very important. Because you cannot just be all up here and be like, oh, now I'm connecting with them. This is so awesome. And to completely neglect the other part of yourself, which is screaming literally for acknowledgement and for let's do this. That would be like bypassing something
right.
that, and that's actually like a disservice to self, I want to say, if that were to occur, which is understandable because the pain can be quite overwhelming from what I understand.
Yeah,
And so that's what I want to say here. And the second thing is, yes, when we're talking about religion, sometimes that communication with the passed on loved ones is even like almost demonized, meaning it's something that shouldn't be pursued. But when we're looking at different cultures, for example, in the West, death is just something that happens and there's nothing after that. In Mexican culture, for example, it's very, very different because there's even Dia de los Muertos, which is like a celebration of the ancestors. That's this whole process of house cleaning and then the beautiful flowers that lead them there, you know, that someone is still thinking of them, pictures. It's a whole different culture. And also, you know, when they're carrying their passed on loved ones through the streets for everyone to see, it's quite a visible ritual, right? Versus in the Western culture, it's almost like hush hush, and once that's done, that's fine. Please move on with your world already, you know, that you're grieving is fine, but please only do it for X amount of weeks or months, and then you should be good. And I'm just like, that's not exactly how this works. Not in my mind anyways. I mean, there's different realities obviously and very different belief systems about this. um, and that brings me to the next thing, because when you actually manage to connect and kind of meet in the middle of grieving, the emotions, the anger, everything that comes up with that, and then connecting the higher realms with that and make this like a nice balance, I think this is very much where it's at. And we can receive amazing messages from our ancestors, passed on loved ones, even from pets, by the way. Like it's so cool to see when that happens, because I never actually did so many readings like with you where the person had just passed on or we hadn't intended in connecting. It was more like an accidental thing that would happen, right? But in your case, we kind of like specifically targeted that. And that was kind of a new experience for me as well. And to see, wow, there's something truly special about this, about these two people. I just do not have like the reference point, like I said, if that's the case for every single person, but I do know that our loved ones are there like 100%, at least for some time, to console us or consolidate. I don't know.
Console, yes, yes.
Console us, yeah, to console us, to be with us, to see what's happening. And yeah, like I felt that way with my grandmother too, who I loved so, so dearly. She was definitely there for some time. That was years ago. Like I'm really bad with time, but I reckon like about, I don't know, 15 years ago, probably roughly in that ballpark. Um, and I wasn't connected at all. I wasn't even on the spiritual path whatsoever, but I could feel her presence. And especially when I was really, really down, I could feel her coming through. Like I could feel her presence. It was quite magnificent. Like that was unmistakable. And there were a couple of other events where she would show her presence very strongly, but when I needed her most, she would be there. And I'm sure you have moments like this with your dear Rick as well, or with other people potentially too that are already on the other side.
Yes, 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 amazing. And I do love that you brought in about the grieving because it is important and it is
Yeah,
natural. It's very,
totally.
very natural to grieve and to go through. You know, even after then that happened, I would have, of course, moments where going into and in one of the readings, the very first reading, Marta said, "I'm getting go deep into the
Yeah,
under the fire."
yeah.
Go
That's right. Not
under the
true.
fire.
Yeah,
Yes, and don't
totally.
try to jump through the fire or in the fire. Just go, just flow
Yeah.
with it, and so and you know, yes, there are times of extreme like loneliness. Just the house is so quiet, and especially when you're living with a booming energy, you know,
Mm,
as Rick. And
yeah.
and also I went through a period, and it still comes up, but it's really have been going deep into this blaming. There's so many different layers of the grieving process.
Mm,
You know, just the sadness of them not being there, then the wondering what you could have done different. I mean, you could
yeah.
just endlessly beat yourself up over, well, what if we did this or didn't do that, or what if we did that and that, you know,
Yeah.
and it's endless. And then at some point you just have to say, I mean, yeah, this is not good for me.
Yeah.
You know, I need this to transmute or and shift. And then there's even like, you know, blaming, you know, I went through a period of blaming situations in his life and people that were in it uh
Mm,
for bringing on an early death. That's a whole
mhm.
story in itself, but essentially that was what I went through. And
Yeah.
so there's so much, but you know, and I have to say that sessions with Marta have really helped me to be able to go into these and you know, one of the things that came up was shadows, the
Uh-huh.
shadows, right? Because this for a lot of people it brings up a lot of shadows,
Yeah.
and not just death, you know, but we all have our shadows.
We
And
do.
so a lot of times as a we don't want to suffer, we don't want to feel guilt, we don't want,
Oh
and
my God. Yeah.
you know, and so we avoid the shadow side of ourselves. And this whole process for me served a great purpose in
Mm,
helping me to acknowledge my own shadows and
yeah.
to make friends with them, you
Mm,
know. uh so in a way that Marta described it, I don't know if I can remember, but the way you described it was that can you remember what you said exactly? Do you know what I'm talking about?
you mean about the emotions and the uncomfortable ones?
Yeah, and like um loving our shadow is
Yeah,
a way of transmuting them actually and bringing them into the
a
into
100%. Yeah. 100%. So to me and on my channel and my personal life, obviously, this is where it started. The shadow work became extremely essential because I realized that if we ever want to change anything in this world, you have to work on yourself. There's no bypassing that because we're constantly like we're projecting it out onto other people if we don't take it back to ourselves. And if we don't realize that the other person or the event in front of us is actually created possibly by us, but it's definitely created for us, how we can learn and grow. And this is a friend, this is a gift that is being presented to you. And once you can, you know, become more of the observer in this whole situation and be like, oh, I can see myself, I'm angry or I'm grieving, I'm sad, or I feel guilt. Let's observe what's actually happening here. So instead of becoming the guilt itself or the anger itself, and you're just that, you're kind of like saying, okay, part of myself is angry or feels guilty. Why is that? And which part is that? How old is that part? So really identifying and making sure this is not all of you, this is just part of you. And then once you get the higher view of this is what came in for me later as I started to step into the work that I'm doing now. And I didn't really step into it. It kind of like it overcame me and it started to, you know, unfold in my own life, which was a whole crazy journey all on its own. I wasn't looking for it. I was just looking to feel better because I didn't feel good. Like I would wake up in the morning and I just didn't feel good. And I just didn't want to be like that anymore. And so it kind of like came about that way. And again, shadow work really has helped me identify that and know that it's not all of me and that those emotions are messengers. They're truly friends. They're only becoming so big when we're running away from them. And again, when we're talking about, yeah, do you want to say something?
No, that was it. That was the thing.
That one, yeah.
That's all. No, go keep going, please.
And when we're looking at the state of the world and what has happened and unfolded 3 years ago, if I can talk about this here, it's like I feel a lot of shadow came up within people, and had they looked at it and instead of blaming situations, other people for what was going on, and some of that is still perpetuating itself now, and it will be with the next events that I believe will be unfolding. So it's a really good idea to look at oneself and be like, okay, what's happening right now? Is fear arising within me? Am I trying to externalize that and make someone else responsible for that? Or can I just chill for a minute, come back to myself and see, okay, where does this actually come from? What am I actually so afraid of? And to align with that. For those of the people that are watching and that have done meditation, you guys know how this feels, like how you can find inner peace, how you can get your answers from the higher self. But I feel like this is only one part of the puzzle, like the answers, much like we were talking about the passing on, but then you have yourself to deal with because you're a human being. We are human beings. So this is one part. The other part is this one, is the earthly connection. You're a human being, we're human beings. And to bring those two together, then to deal with your own shadow. Messages, awesome, high vibrational, fantastic. What about, you know, myself and the shadow? That's kind of like, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about, you know, as you were doing that, father, mother. That's what earth, it is father, mother, father spirit, mother earth, and the coming together of the two.
Yeah.
And what we think of birth and death is actually a renewing of, right? It's a renewal. Yeah. Everything. You look at the trees, you look at the plants, you look at the flowers, and everything is constantly renewing. And when we think of flowers dying, it's renewing, it's regenerating. Like us, we are constantly in our consciousness is actually renewing. And as we can, I mean, you brought up the observer, and the observer is when I think of the observer, I think of non-judgment, because totally. You're just you're observing.
Yeah,
I'm just observing. It means that you're neutral.
Yeah.
And when we know that this is why we came here, we're one with Mother Earth, we're made up of all the same elements, the water, the air, the earth, right? And the fire. And we are made up of all those things, and we go through the exact same process. And all the shadow feelings or beliefs or whatever they, however they're showing up, whether they're thoughts, feelings, they are just there for a purpose. And our own judgments of them really get in the way of us being able to renew and regenerate. And this is many times what creates, what we think of as death. But even with that, we're renewing in consciousness as well.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah.
It doesn't stop when we're not in the physical.
No, it's just one form that turns into the other, but I feel like the essence would be staying the same. Like you are the soul element. Or when you're thinking about, how the leaf of a tree, let's say, right? How it sprouts, the baby stage, and then it unfolds and is beautiful and it's doing its job because it's delivering, all the necessary stuff that the tree needs. And then when it's fulfilled its purpose, when it's, how do you not fulfill its purpose so much? Maybe, yes, of course, also, but when just this form of life comes to an end and it starts to crumble and then it falls off, I'm not sure if it thinks that way or if the tree is thinking anything about it. It's just like you were saying, the natural circle of life, and then the tree is decomposing on the ground and is serving for nutrients for something else. And it's just like they become this energy, or they are this energy this whole time. And that energy then goes because it's free again, right? It's much like with the human beings. You're no longer, I don't know, in your earthly existence. Let's say you had pain before, then that's gone, and you're able to be free again and to do the other things. But part of it also, I really believe, is this experience here, and to taste, to see, to experience everything. And this is where, for me, duality comes in so much, because we're interpreting situations or feelings that are negative to us in that way, because that's, society wants to see us happy all the time. It's like, it's not realistic. Hence shaming us for being in other states other than being happy, versus we came here actually, in my mind, in my feelings, to experience all of those emotions, the positive as well as the quote unquote negative ones. It's just like, it's an experience. And when we're talking about the observer, that's exactly what happens. You then observe, oh, I have this feeling. Oh, I have that feeling. I highly encourage everyone to befriend their feelings and to listen to what they have to say. Maybe some journaling or something like that always helps me a whole lot, because sometimes whole sentences would show up, or sometimes it's just a word, and that is just the truth. Have you ever had that, where it's just like the clicking moment, where it's just like, oh, okay. I bet you have. Why am I even asking?
Well, no, yes, yes. So yes, yes. I mean, and even this morning, like in meditation, I am having these now there's also fears about what am I going to do now with Ricky? What in terms of financially, so. And that has been really coming up quite a bit. And I realized it's an old tape. It got pushed. It got healed a lot over the past years. But it also got pushed to the side a little bit with Rick here, supporting me. So his support, not only emotionally and physically and financially, every way. Without that, it reveals what's left in me to be what's left here now. And as I've been finding, like the last couple of weeks of meditation, I can hardly meditate. My mind is going all of these things I think I need to do and to take care of. and start doing and today I just came in and I got really quiet and I was like, oh my goodness, peace. And I heard, trust me. And it came from really deep within me. It wasn't out here. No,
Wow.
it was really deep within me. Trust me. And there was suddenly I felt this enormous capacity to truly not just say, okay, I'll try. No,
Yeah.
no. I felt this capacity to, yes, I do. You have shown me enough in my life. I don't need any more proof. And I felt like I gave it. And it was like, you know, and of course it goes in layers as it always does, but that was huge. That was a huge one for me just this morning.
That's incredible. Congratulations. That's so cool when that happened.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Now you mentioned your own journey. And I wonder if you might be open to sharing some of your own journey, and because I know you have a very unique one, and I love it. And I have to say, I just keep falling in love with the angel wings around you. They're like your angel wings.
The only room in the house that is quiet, and so
well, it was meant to be. It's so elegantly perfect.
Yeah, thank you very much. So my own journey, like I mentioned before a little bit, and I'll share here and there's because I'm rather private, like on the YouTube channel as well. So I'll share a little bit. So I grew up in not necessarily the most nurturing circumstances, I want to say. So I also felt very lost in those circumstances. And I always wanted to kind of have, a manual, like how does this life work? Because I was so confused for decades. And I just didn't understand what was going on at all. And I was just like, I'm at a loss. Why am I here? Like those thoughts were there pretty early on. I had a lot of thoughts about death, and that kept me up at night, even as a small child already. And it's interesting now that that is clicking, because now that I'm thinking about it, it's very interesting, like what happens after death. That's interesting. I hadn't made that connection up until this podcast, what happens afterwards, but also about eternity. And so I was confused because there was no one that could give me any answers. Like my parents were nowhere spiritual or, just not connected, which is totally fine. I chose those parents. I chose this environment. And that's what I got. And coming back to, friends and seeing that for what it is, they were extremely good teachers. And I'm very thankful to them for creating that environment for me. Now, after working through all the shadow, which had to occur, I want to make that very clear, because it's not like I just went from, oh, this was so amazing. No, I went through a long, long process of healing, of going through therapies of different kinds, trying to find out what works for me. And then the awakening that just kind of came over me. I was literally sitting at the kitchen table, and all of a sudden, boom, it was like that. I was like, what is happening? And I had not read any spiritual books. I hadn't watched any spiritual movies. I was kind of out there in terms of this world is not working like everyone says it does. It's not working that way for me. Like I was definitely on that trajectory and about, certain conspiracy theories. That's what was interesting to me, but nothing spiritual per se. And then in the course of this, it was very interesting because it was so sudden and so immediate, and it immediately switched around my life, like completely. And there were also long periods of confusion that were attached to that also, but that were part of the healing process. But ultimately, I was pretty much asked if I wanted to be a light worker, and something within me that I had not expected up until this point just immediately jumped forward and said yes. I was like, whoa. And I had never even heard that term before. It was just something internally, and whether or not I wanted to stay here. And something within me jumped again. And it was like, yes. And I was like, what? Like, I do not necessarily like what has been happening up to this point. Why would something within me be so strong and jump forward and say yes, like with such certainty? Come to find out now, a couple of years later, working through all the processes, and learning about my guides. Like, one of the first ones that came through was actually Gabriel, and he just announced himself with Gabriel. And I was like, okay, hi Gabriel, whatever. I'm just like, okay, going about my day, kind of trying to exist in the moment and all that. And come to find out through different occurrences yet again that we're talking about Archangel Gabriel, and it just kind of went from there. But it took me some time to actually realize that, how do I phrase this? Because I didn't quite believe like why I would be the one that someone wanted to be working with, or why this would be happening. So it really took me some time. Same with Isis, by the way. And it's interesting because you have the Christian religions, right? Like the angels, and you have Jeshua or Jesus, and you have God, however you want to call them truly. To me, it's one and the same thing. If you're talking about unconditional love and the highest light, that's that for me, right? And when we're talking about guides, and I know I'm jumping, so please help me if you can't follow anymore. Then it's just like, that's it. So you definitely want to make sure your guides are of that. To me, it's just highest Christ consciousness, highest divine light, unconditional love. That's who I'm tapped into. And I'm very grateful for that, because they're ever so patient, ever so understanding, ever so loving. So that's been really, really, truly amazing for me, and to step into that path. And the years of healing that would follow after that amazing awakening, starting to see things, starting to be able to channel, starting to walking around 2 weeks straight to see the world with spirit's eyes, where you love every single person that it was incredible, until the mind kind of started to kick back in, where it was like, you can't live like that because you need to function. And you exist, you just are. And so it's just like the beingness of it, but it's so radically different from that thing that we seem to be wearing all the freaking time, that is just hindering us from making that connection and just from being present. Now, again, after all this healing journey, I feel like I'm at a really good space where I actually like being here, where, I'm enjoying my life. I love being alive. I love serving other people through the work that I do. It's been such a massive shift. And if I'm looking back at the person I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it's like, it's very hard to recognize. I know that this was part of my journey. She definitely was part of my journey, an essential one too. But I feel like that transformation, wow. I mean, it was so worth it. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, to be truthful, but all of that was necessary, and all the shadow work I did in between, without which I don't think true change can come about. Because yes, you can brush over it. Yes, you can put on some makeup or a band-aid, but that doesn't make it better. Like, it needs to heal, like in my personal opinion and my personal experience also. And then you're all of a sudden in this other place, and it can come quite quickly then all of a sudden, where you're just like, oh my God. Where it's just like, wow, like tremendous change has just occurred. So what people may be seeing on the outside, maybe like the spur of a moment type of oh, this person has changed, but it undertook quite the journey to get there. So I don't even know what I want to say with this, but the point is, there tremendous change and tremendous transformation can occur. You can go from not loving your life at all into, I love this life, this is incredible, with a lot of moment of presence. Because I just reflected upon this the other day. Back then, I had very rarely moments where I was present. I wasn't even aware that I was in a completely dissociated state, meaning almost like not in my body, as little in my body as I could. And then sometimes I had those strong clarity moments where it was just like for a split second. And in retrospect, I know that's when I was present. That's when I was actually there. But I can count them in one hand how many times that occurred. Now I'm living mostly in the present. And if I don't, if fear states, for example, occur, and finances is definitely one of those that I've been working on over the past years, and mainly over the past 3 years, to know that you can trust, to know that you're guided, to know that you're held. You can rely on yourself and on your guides, on spirit, on God, that you are taken care of, you are guided, and you are carried. Is such a beautiful thing. And again, too, that you can have the means to come back to the present moment, get out of fearful state, because those are illusions. What are we fearful of? The future. Do you have food now? Do you have a house now? Do you have, you know what I mean?
Yes,
Are you
yes.
healthy now? And even if you're not, then those are indicators that there can be progress made. But my main point here is you can go to quite a bit of presence and quite a bit of not controlling your thoughts, but knowing that those are illusions too, because your mind will be telling you all sorts of things versus your heart is just like, ah, kind of like this. Yeah. Non-talkable.
Well, it's so interesting because as you're saying that, about the thoughts, right? Because so much of like this world with the law of attraction and manifestation is talking about changing your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And from negative to positive.
Uh-huh.
The negative thoughts, and I want to like present this in the right way, but that all thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
whether you think that they're good or bad,
Yeah.
And this is how people are trying to change their lives, by changing their thoughts. And
Yeah.
I would like to say, even your highest thought, even your best thought of your life is a limited thought, because it's a thought. And the term, when Yeshua talked about be still and know, and
Mm-hmm.
this is where limitless magic happens in your life, is when you don't feel like you have to figure out with your thoughts what would be your best life, but rather because our thoughts are what project who we think that we are.
Yeah.
And that can change every single day. You can drive yourself crazy, with to create a higher thought and a higher thought. And in the moment of stillness and silence, where the thoughts stop, even for 2 seconds.
Mm. We got it on video. That's awesome.
This is where the limitlessness of divine mind comes in and presents infinite potentials.
Yeah.
That are the magic, that are the serendipity and the synchronicity and the power that flows through you to take you through life without you having to think about every step and worry about whether or not you're taking the right one or the right one, or and allowing that place. And I feel like that's kind of like the Buddhists of non-thought, not going from bad thought to good thought. There is a journey in that too, and it has its place.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the be still and know is acknowledging that the divine mind lives within you and can take over if we quiet this and allow. And it take some practice, and there's no nothing to beat yourself up over, because the mind can really take over and make us crazy. But we can also know that there is that us, that is the I am presence, our own soul, that's already perfect and whole, that can observe those the thoughts, whether they're good, whether they're bad, and not latch onto them, but to kind of allow them to just be that. And and the and that creates space. It's really like the space of the silence that allows unlimited, infinite potentials in your life to take over, when we can be in the joy. And it's so fun to hear you talk about your journey, and from a couple of years ago, how, you had your own suffering over, what is this world? What's going on? How do I fit into it? What's my purpose? Who am I really? And now to see the joy in your face.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and it's beautiful. And it's not that the problems that you had are gone. It's that you have a new and higher perspective and knowing of yourself, and an acceptance of the shadow. And also, I guess this just kind of takes me to, because you have a trauma workshop coming up, right?
Yes.
A trauma workshop.
I do. Yeah.
So I'm very curious how your own journey with the shadow side is influencing, and what you're bringing into this to help other people with trauma in this workshop. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. First of all, I want to actually say, because you said the problems are still there, they're in fact not. They're in fact gone, because they're no longer a problem. Once I transmuted them, they became something else. And I realized that I was telling myself a story that kept me stuck. So a story about myself in my life, of why certain things weren't coming about, or why my life sucked, blah, 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 blah. But this was necessary too, like not even to shame that part of myself that thought that way for so many years, because it was legit. I just was running away from the feelings, which is why it took such a long time for me to realize a couple of things about what was actually going on.
Yes. Yes.
And coming to the workshop tools.
Thank you.
Go ahead. What?
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't necessarily mean to say those problems are still there, but that we still deal with things in life.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, 100%, 100% agreed. I find it becomes easier once you arrive at that, once you actually have like the manual, oh, this is what I can do, once you have something that works for you, where it's just like, oh, no running from it, looking at it, journaling, potentially having like a couple of routines that help you with this. Knowing what it's like to meditate doesn't always work. Sometimes I go through periods too, I want to say this. And like you were saying so beautifully, to not shame yourself if it doesn't work, because there are periods where I go through where meditation is not an option for me, because I know it's not beneficial for me in that moment. I'd rather do other things instead in those moments that serve me better, because my mind is in overdrive. And then, I mean, sometimes it works, and when it works, it's freaking amazing. But again, it doesn't always work. So don't beat yourself up. Sometimes just, being in the forest or whatever is like the perfect thing to do. Yeah. So, but the workshop, I created it, and I kind of felt like I came full circle with it, because I went from, I suffered from quite a bit of anxiety, and I actually have CPTSD, so complex post-traumatic stress syndrome. I still do have that, but it's so mild now. Like the symptoms of it are so mild, if any at all. If there's like a little bit more stress, then I can feel my nervous system react to it still. but it's nowhere near where it used to be. And at the peak point, it just was like panic attacks for 3 months straight, like day and night. I would wake up to panic attacks like several times through the night if I even managed to go to sleep. So it was really a really horrific situation to be in. Again, I found a technique that's called brain spotting, and a therapist along with it that was extremely helpful. She had over 20 years experience. I think now she is at the 30 mark, and she is doing remarkable work. And I'm thankful for her because I probably owe her my life. And during that period of time, I found so many techniques, and I got into the thing of routine a lot more. So how important it is to have a steady routine and to make yourself do those, even though you don't feel like it, especially in those heightened states of anxiety. When you have panic attacks, it's essential, because otherwise you pretty much already have given up, right? If you don't fight, you want to bring your life back, you want to have it back. And so as I came through out on the other end, I was like, oh my God, like when finally that relief kind of kicked in and I got out of it, out of all of this, I still had social anxiety to deal with, but that was nothing in comparison to like how much any situation would trigger me. I would hear a crying child and I would be in panic immediately. Like, and I lived in a complex where there were so many, like 200 families, 300 families. So it would happen all the time. And then, couldn't watch TV, couldn't listen to anything, like literally anything would trigger me into panic. And then going through the shadow, healing all of that, right? And then being left with all the techniques and a lot more knowledge that I can share. I have huge understanding for people that are suffering through that. I know what this is like. I know how helpless it feels, which is why I decided at some stage I want to share this with people, because if I can help one person go through this process more easily and to assist them going through that more easily and to actually help them stop a panic attack in its tracks, let's say, because I have created the Magic 4, which do exactly that for people. So it's incredible because you go from being helpless, waiting on the next one that completely rolls over you and you do not know what to do, to actually having tools on your hand that are highly effective in stopping that. So it gives you control back immediately, which is incredible. I mean, if you've ever been in those states, you know exactly, like if even you can get a little bit of relief from that, it's like a total game changer. And so I created 7 days with 7 different routines so people can pick and choose which one is their favorite. They can obviously also mix them. I have breathing techniques, tapping, acupressure, micro movements. I throw in a lot of explanation about the biology and science of what happens, because I found that very interesting and helpful to know what is firing, what kind of hormones are doing what, and to counteract what you can do to counteract those. So all of that combined will be hopefully when this is airing will already be there. So let's just say the link is attached down below.
Yes, down below we'll have the link. Yes, as well as go ahead. Go ahead.
I hope people can benefit from it, and I hope to bring them relief with this for sure.
Yes. And this is like any trauma, right? Like any sort of trauma. Because I feel like I worked with a company for about a year called Mending Trauma. And one of the things I realized in working with them through the community is that people have a conception of what trauma is, right? And they or like, well, I only went through this, so that's not really trauma.
Right?
No. And so, other people have been through worse. I didn't do that. So I don't have trauma. So, I guess, I mean, can you speak to that a little bit? Like, just like the misnomer about what trauma, how to identify trauma within yourself. When you really are looking inside, like how does it feel inside, so people can say, oh yes, maybe that.
Okay, so This is a very, very good question. And I'm no expert on the field. Like I'm no psychologist or anything like that. I can only speak to my own trauma. And I didn't realize I was walking around with it for such a long time. And I know because I see it on a daily basis, people walk around with quite a bit of trauma all the time that makes their life difficult to handle because, for example, they get troubles in their relationships all the time because they have some kind of a trauma from childhood or from somewhere in their lives that they're still carrying around with them. So if there was something repeating that was kind of dominating their life, then I want to say, and again, I'm no expert, then that could be defined in my book as some sort of a trauma that you're still carrying around with yourself. So it would be a really good idea to deal with it. Trauma is some kind of an impact, right? That we're talking about that something has on your life. I'm thinking about a car when there's trauma, like an impact on it, and how that may leave a dent, right? And if you don't do something about it, then that dent can be there. It's fine, you know. It's just something happened. Trauma occurs, I think, when you're not. Oh, now I know. Okay. For some reason, now I know. Is when you're not able to work through it, basically. When you're not able, like animals, to go behind the bush and kind of shake it off, and then it's gone. It's an event that you're carrying along with you, and that is affecting you still. And that's the issue that a lot of people have. And I want to say, Tools for Trauma is not going to solve that for you. I really want to make that clear because you still would have to do therapies, like you want to deal with the root. Tools for Trauma is helping you with the symptoms. So, for example, you see a therapist for 1 hour a day, let's say, but you still have 23 hours to deal with the stuff that you're dealing with yourself. So that's what Tools for Trauma is for. It's combating the symptoms and is helping you with those, with the time in between. It does not get rid of your original trauma. For that, you would have to seek out someone, you know, professional, but it is quite helpful.
Well, and I imagine it helps you actually to can help with your own awareness of your trauma, because
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when there's really trauma, it gets shut away. I mean, people can even forget it for years.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like something, an event that happened, or it could be anything that was recurring in your life over and over and over to the point that you became so comfortable with it that you thought it was normal.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But you're seeing things come up in, like you said, relationships, or how you interact with the world, or with anything. And so these tools can really help to bring them up and have a healthier way to work with them. Like working with shadows. I mean, would you say that our trauma is very much our shadow, the same as a shadow, or is that a different thing?
That's an interesting question. I want to say there's a difference, but I hadn't specifically thought of it that way before, like how this is actually connected. I feel like when the trauma occurs and you have those feelings and it's too strong and you shut it away, that's kind of like, that would be the shadow to me because you don't see it. It's in the shadows. The trauma itself isn't necessarily the shadow. The trauma, if we're talking about another person, for example, causing that, then it's their trauma that they're then projecting onto you. And that creates something within you. So there's an effect that is going on here. That's how generational trauma is actually carried forth. So, excuse me. So it's like passed on from one generation to the next, maybe not in the same way, but the core issue might remain the same. And you can either choose to pass it on to your children without ever reflecting upon it, or you're reflecting upon it and try to make it better, or if you don't have any children, to other people in your life, because that's what you do. There's a reason why they say hurt people, and the hurt people might not even know about it, that they're hurting, because when we don't see, we don't see. So there's also that, compassionate element. When you see it yourself, you can also acknowledge that you didn't see it before, and not necessarily expect it in other people that they see this too. If they have seen it and perpetually doing what they're doing, I mean, then it's still up to us, our choice, if we want people that are doing this in our lives or not. Yeah, that's my stance on it.
Wow, that was really beautifully said. Thank you. That really, I love how you express that. That's great.
Yeah.
The trauma in the shadow. There was something I wrote down that maybe at the beginning of this podcast, we were talking about the other side.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned something this morning. I feel that you noticed, that you saw with the dog.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's coming to me to ask you to share that.
Sure. So this morning, because whenever I meet up with someone, or just like for my day, I often receive some sort of messages in different form. And this morning it was actually, I was seeing a little teeny tiny crab that came through the front door. So cute. I first thought, what is this? And then I approached it and it was super cute. And then I tried to usher it out the door because I didn't want somebody accidentally stepping on it. Plus, it probably wouldn't find food within the house. So I was just trying to usher it out, but it caused the crab distress because I don't know, it was probably thinking, you're big, you can, do something to me, which is not the intention at all. So I tried to communicate with it as I often do with animals, through the head. So if you will, telepathy, whatever you want to call this, but just like communicating with non-words. And I could feel the anxiety of the crab, like the heartbeat, the elevated heartbeat. I could see red. And so like really a lot of excitement and not in a good way. So I tried to communicate that it's okay. And that I just wanted to help it. But it only understood to a certain degree, I felt. So I just thought best to quickly usher it out and just let it be. But there was a baby crab. And then as I was doing my breath work, I looked up in the sky and I saw a literal baby formed out of clouds. And right next to it, a baby dolphin, which was really interesting. I was like, that's a whole lot of baby imagery that you're presenting me with this morning. And I'm like, that probably has to do something with the podcast that Jen and I are planning to do today. And I was immediately thinking about rebirth. So it really ties into that whole thing, when they're ready, the souls on the other side, then they're choosing or not choosing to be reborn here on Earth, or matter of fact, on other star systems, planets, whatever is out there that we, for the majority, have no idea about what this is or where this is. But I truly believe they do have some time where they're quite close to us before they choose to be reborn into another form again. And what's also interesting, what I want to mention is before this, I actually drew a card.
You would.
Yeah, the numbers.
936.
Yeah, 936. And I was immediately thinking, wow, that's profound, in terms of Nikola Tesla, in terms of manifestation. I know that Rick and you work with numbers quite a bit. So there is definitely something there. And the seraph of 369 hertz, it's like an extremely high frequency, and it actually calls us back. Do you want to say something?
I just want to say, this is how I'm always blown away every time Marta and I talk, because last night I started reading a book, The Torah Project, and I opened the book to the part about 369 and 369. Yes. And there's always, this always happens with us. And Rick's favorite numbers, even before he got into the codes and everything that he now is bringing down to me, which Martha helped me to also realize. But he was always Nikola Tesla 369. And he was just as fanatic as Nikola Tesla, I think, and everything had to be a 3, 6, or 9, everything.
Wow.
Even if he was ordering something on Amazon, if the amount didn't go 3, 6, or 9, he would either take something out of the cart or add something to the cart until it did.
Wow. True dedication.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Anyways, so and it also is so funny because I was thinking, oh, I wish I would have asked her before we started the podcast if she might want to draw a card.
Matter of fact, and I would like to read, if that's okay, to kind of close out this whole thing because I think it could be relevant. So it's just like a short paragraph here. So practice connecting with the joy that is always deep within you. Pay attention to what brings you exquisite delight. Yes. If you don't know what that is, you are guided to experiment and explore. Connecting to the joyful capacity of your heart will heal so much negativity and uncertainty. Let your heart relax. Allow the spiritual grace that wishes to reorder your life to manifest its miraculous magic. Exactly. Like present, present, present. Yeah.
I mean,
Oh.
that is beautiful. Um, yeah, okay, so please stay on with me after after we close this out and I
Yeah.
stop the recording. And
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much. This has just been such a magical and beautiful time with you. Thank you for all that you have shared with me
Mhm.
and with everyone, and just your beautiful presence and your
Oh,
angel wings. I
thank you.
absolutely love you, and thank you so much.
Thank you so, so much, Jen, for having me on and for, sharing your thoughts with me. We're always like sparking back and forth, I feel like. So this was beautiful. Thank you very much. And I love you too, obviously. You're an amazing person. I can only commend you how you're dealing with everything that you're dealing with and how, because you're the living proof of integrating these two worlds, these two feelings, the higher view and whatever else emotions are coming up. So this is quite impressive to watch, like as an observer and as your friend. And I mean, it's amazing. It's marvelous. So incredible. It really incredible. And yeah, thank you everyone for watching.
Yes,
And
thank
for being
you.
here with us, for sharing your time with us. And yeah, maybe if you want to come check out my channel, Universal Power Tarot, if you're interested in the workshop, there'll be a couple of other videos that I will probably already have published or are being published that explain the workshop a little bit better. You can also reach out to me personally at universalpowertarot@gmail.com if you have any questions or if you would like to book a private healing reading or higher guidance coaching call with me. Sending
Beautiful.
everyone so
Yes.
much
And
love, light,
all
and shadow. And thank you.
love and light. And all of these links will be below and actually also in the yes, they're going to be here in the video as well. So
Awesome.
once we put this all together. So yes, thank you so much, Marta. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Namaste.
Bye. Bye. Bye.